In today's video, I'm going to show you how to go a little bit faster at AutoPolis in Group 3 for round 3 of the Manufacturers Championship. It's at AutoPolis, it's on racing medium and racing hard tyres, and we're going to give you the strategy breakdown to help you out in the race and hopefully get you as many points as possible. So remember, if you do enjoy these videos, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, it does help me out, and let me know in the comments, even after you've done the race, if you manage to get some good points because of our guide. Always love reading them comments. But let's get into this and start the guide to start off with. So going into turn 1, we are looking for the 100 board. Now we are going to break pretty much dead level with that. So as we come into the braking phase, you can see a fraction past that 100 board and we're onto the brakes and we're slowing it down now for turn 1. Now you want to get this car turned in very early. You'd want to try and run the curb as you go through the corner, so it's quite a difficult apex to hit. So you can see down to second gear, and then we're going to get back on the throttle, and you can see ideally you want that right hand tire to get right up onto the curb so you can accelerate nice and early. I slightly missed that, but I do manage to get on the power and carry some reasonable speed now into the next section. So for this next section, we're looking for the little bit of tarmac after the 100 board and before the 50 board here. We're going to brake using that as our reference. You can also use the end of the red-orange barrier on the left if you want to, but I use that little bit of grey tarmac. And from here, you're going to start rotating into this next right-hand corner. It's quite a fast corner. You'll go down to third, and then you can go down to second gear to get a bit more rotation, and then accelerate out the exit and into this next technical section. From here, just a tiny little bit of braking input as we go into the left-hand corner. And you don't want to be aggressive through here. You just want to let the car coast, let the car do its own thing. And then once you've lined up for the final apex here, you can get back on the power. And once the car is in a straight line before the end of the curb on the right-hand side, you need to be on the brakes way before that end. You can slow it down, and ideally I like to take a narrow line through here, so keep it nice and tight to the apex. First gear for rotation, and then gradually feed that throttle in. Don't go 100% throttle, because if you do that, you'll instantly spin. Feed that throttle in gradually, and then into this next fast left-hand corner, using the start of the curb as our turning in point. We're going to chuck it in from there, and you want to get this left-hand tyre to just run along the curb on the left-hand side. So a tiny bit of braking input, you can see, because that's going to put the weight on the front of the car. That'll help with rotation, and then you can get back on the throttle a little bit earlier and carry that momentum out of this corner into the heavy braking for the hairpin. Now this is an overtaking opportunity. As you come up this hill, you'll see an opportunity possibly in your race. It is probably one of the best opportunities to go for a move if you get close. But we're using that arrow there, the left-hand arrow, after the 100 before the 50 board as our reference for the braking. You can see pretty much dead on it as we go past it. And now we're going to keep it straight and then start rotating in, because you want to get the left-hand tyre just to run along the top of the hill. So as you come through here, you can see just as you hit the apex, run along the curb, a little bit of tarmac there, and then back onto the throttle. Be careful you don't go too early. It's very easy to lose the rear on that corner, especially if you get on the curb while on the power, and then work your way down now into this long fast right hand corner. And you're going to be looking for the 50 board on the left hand side, getting on the brakes just before that 50 board. You can see braking inputs going in there. Make sure you're before that 50 board, and then use third gear for the rotation. Try and get that right hand tyre up to the curb on the initial entry, and then use the curb on the exit, and make sure you're on the brakes and turning in before the end of the curb on the left there. And now it's all about just hugging this curb as you go through this long right hand corner. Be patient on the throttle, because if you're too aggressive, you can see I was a little bit too aggressive there. I've slightly compromised my line. Ideally we want to be further from the right coming into this next left hand corner like the ghost in front of us. So yeah, be very cautious on how aggressive you do that. And then into this next corner, you can see making sure on the brakes very early, because you want to be getting right up to the curb where I've circled it in yellow. You want to get right up to that on the right hand side, and you want to make sure that your car doesn't go fully out to the full width of the track as you enter into this next right hand corner. You want to be coming from the middle part of the track. So you're going to use second gear here, gradually feed that throttle in, and then once the car is in a straight line, you want to try and go as straight over this section as possible. Be very careful though, it's very easy to lose the rear, and you can see my car, as we start coming into this corner, we're just going to lift off the throttle. Ideally we'd rather be a little bit further over to the right like the ghost, but we can see we almost get a bit of a drift going into the corner. But you don't really need to go on the brakes for that left hand corner. It's all about just letting the car coast, come from as wide an angle as possible. Then we go into this final long right hand corner, using the curb on the left as our brake reference. So you can see as we come pretty much dead level with it, we're onto the brakes. And now it's about trying to hug the curb as we go through this long right hand corner. So you can see keeping the line as narrow to the curb as possible. You can see the Ghost we're chasing in front of us does the ideal line there, right up to the white line. Using that white line as a reference for that right tyre is how you want to do it. And then attack the exit here. Just if you need to go over the grass a little bit, you can get away with it, and then keep that car in a straight line to the finishing line. 44.6. It's not an amazingly fast lap, but it should be good enough to give you the basics of this track and help you maybe get as high up there on the qualifying as possible. So now let's go into the chase cam review with the kilometers now for the people that use that. And again, we can have a little look at that lap and you can spot some of the mistakes that I made. And we'll try and obviously again try and give you some of the extra information. So again, through turn 1, tiny little bit closer to the curb. You want to be almost up that curb on the right hand tire, and then working your way into this next corner. This is all about carrying momentum and being smooth. The smoother you are, the faster you'll be through. If you try and chase a lap through this section, you'll very often get scruffy and lose a lot of time. So it's all about keeping that smoothness. Wait for the car to be in a straight line. Make sure on the brake before the end of the curb on the right hand side, and then take that very narrow line through the apex. Don't let the car run out wide. You lose a lot of time by doing that. And then using the curb as our turning in point there. Again, important to try and get that left hand tire right up to the white line. Almost did that perfectly there, and then carry the speed up into the next hairpin, which we're going to use that turning left arrow. You can see it there just before the 50 board. And again, it's all about getting that left hand tire right up to the curb. Careful how you put the throttle down. It's very easy to spin the car because you're accelerating while still putting the steering angle in, so just be cautious on that corner. And then again into this long right hand corner, using the third gear to rotate it, bit of throttle for the exit, and then use the second gear to rotate it if you need to for this right hand corner. And just be careful you don't go wide like I did there. You can see how I compromised myself through there. Probably lost ourselves a tenth to maybe 2 tenths just through being too aggressive there. And now it's about just keeping the car as smooth as possible for you. You can see almost getting a bit of a drift going into that corner, but it didn't work out too bad. And then into this long right hand corner, you really want to get that right hand tire right up to the white line. You can see here I had a bit of a gap to it, so there was definitely potential to go a little bit quicker through there, taking a slightly tighter line, and you should be able to go a bit quicker if you do that also. So let's now move on to the strategy for the actual race, and this is where GT1, GT2, GT3 are all running 16 laps with ×5 tyre wear, ×2 fuel. Medium and racing hard tyres are required in the race, and it's a rolling start. So everyone is running the same race. Nobody is going to have any differences in this race, whether you're GT1 to GT3, and it's all about strategy. And the tyre wear is quite savage. On the medium tyres, these tyres fade very quickly. AutoPolis is known as a tyre killer, so you do need to think about your strategy, especially if you're in the FR cars. FR cars are very likely going to have to run maybe a lap later or just suffer with the medium tyres when they start fading, because they will fade pretty quick on this track. Even in an MR car that I'm in here, they do start fading pretty early on. So by the time we get to the end of lap 3, you can see here we're 3 laps in. Now do remember that the tyre wear might be slightly different, but you can see that is our tyre wear after 3 laps. Now in the actual race, tyre temperatures might be slightly different due to the conditions being slightly lower temperature when it comes to doing the actual race. So there is a factor of that element, but still the tyre wear is pretty savage. And you can see by the time we've done 6 laps, you can see just how bad that front left is, and you can see it's pretty much gone. At this point now, my tyres are fading. We've started to lose nearly over a second now from our fastest lap at that point. So 1.2 seconds gone just because of the tyre wear. And this lap, it was time to get in the pits, because by the time we get here, you can actually see the front left is pretty much KO'd there. There's nothing left on it at all. There's no grip anyway. So into the pits, and now you're going to go and do the hard tyre stint. So if you're starting the race, it looks like 7 laps is going to be the most you're going to get out of these mediums. However, starting the race on the mediums probably won't be the best strategy. The only thing I would say is, though, if you start pole, it possibly will work, because this track is hard to overtake on. And by the time they catch you up, their tyres are going to be a bit faded, and your hard tyres might be in a better condition. So there is going to be some alternative strategies possible in this one. But you can see, as we get through to lap 14 here, you can see the tyre wear on the hard tyres is looking okay. And I will say this, the hard tyres in the Porsche anyway felt pretty good around this track. I don't know if all cars are going to feel like that, but obviously MR Porsche seems very good on the hard tyres, and it will favour the MR cars, I think, this race, because tyre wear will favour them because of the front tyres dying, and obviously the hard tyre stint will definitely favour the MR cars. FR cars that might be pretty strong for this round will probably be the BMW. I would think will be a reasonable car, although on the hard tyres it might be a bit tricky to drive, but I do expect the BMW to have pretty good pace around this combination. But some of the other FR cars might be a bit of a struggle with the tyre wear for this race. You can see even on the hard tyres, after doing 9 laps here, you can see that they are pretty worn at the end of the 9 laps. So that shows you just how extreme this tyre wear is. And I was running still +3 even on the hard tyre. So strategy wise, I think if you're starting on the hard tyre, 8 or 9 laps depending on if you're an MR or an FR driver, and then again mediums 7 to 8 laps depending on if you're an FR or an MR driver. Obviously the MRs can go a little bit longer on the mediums, and that means they can go a little bit shorter on the hard tyre. And if you start on the hard tyre, you should have lower fuel for that second stint, which will help your tyre progression when you get onto that second stint. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting race. It's going to be a lot of tyre saving, and hopefully this video will have given you the advice you need to know. It's a pretty simple strategy. There's no 2 stops. It's just a 1 stop, no fuel. Get in the pits, get out. Pretty much an 8-8 divide if you want to go for that in MR cars. And yeah, it's going to be very, very interesting how this race out. Now, do remember, if there's a lot of battling going on, sometimes going a little bit longer on that hard tyre, giving yourself better tyres towards the end of the stint could work out very nicely for strategy. So always consider that when you can see what's going on in your race situation. But thanks again for all coming in. I'll be back with more of these videos in the future. Take care, everyone.